What if Rick picked the wrong grandkid? What if Summer became Rick's new sidekick? Got a favourite Smith kid? Ever wondered which one you'd actually trust with a portal gun? Morty, the anxious disaster, or Summer, the overconfident chaos engine? Well, if you love Rick and Morty, for some reason buckle up, because Rick might have picked the wrong grandkid, and the multiverse is probably serving the sentence for it. Picture this. You're in the pilot episode, it's 2 a.m. You expect Rick to drag Morty out of bed right wrong. Instead of kicking open Morty's door, he's outside Summer's window, tapping on the glass reeking of booze and dark matter like, "Summer, you son of a, you're my new Morty." And instead of panicking, she just smirks, throws on her sneakers, and says something way too enthusiastic like, "Cool, so which galactic government are we overthrowing first?" That one tiny swap is a hell of a butterfly effect. Because Morty usually slows Rick down a little. He cries, he panics, he occasionally remembers what morality is. Summer doesn't. She adapts to post-apocalypse Mad Max worlds in, 5 minutes. She turns a cursed antique shop into a profitable revenge business. She's already shown she's more ruthless and more ambitious than Morty on Rick's worst day, and if you ask me, that's exactly the kind of energy you don't give a portal gun. So imagine the whole show rewired around that 2 a.m. recruitment. Instead of Morty being emotional collateral damage, Summer becomes Rick's full-time partner in crime, co-pilot, and maybe co-dictator. Suddenly Rick isn't just an irresponsible grandpa with bad boundaries, he's got a hype woman who wants to centralize power every time they land on a new planet. Believe it or not, that might push him from chaotic neutral scientist to full-on multiversal supervillain. Just to give you an idea of how bad this gets, think about every time Summer's had a taste of power already. Devil Shop. She industrializes cursed items. Mad Max Wasteland. She basically becomes Furiosa with better hair. Now give that girl permanent access to portal tech, death rays, and reality warping gadgets. Body count skyrockets. Dictatorships. More of them. Broken timelines. Rick usually abandons 1 or 2 Earths. Now we're talking entire clusters of universes written off as learning experiences. And back home the fallout is brutal. Morty's no longer the chosen sidekick. He's the kid who got passed over for the Apocalypse internship. Beth suddenly has to process that her dad bonded with her daughter instead of her. Jerry is, well, Jerry. But even he's going to notice when his teenage kid comes home with intergalactic war crimes on her college application. Anyway, in this video we're going to rewrite the major eras of Rick and Morty as if Summer had always been in the passenger seat. Early season adventures, Citadel politics, family drama, endgame level arcs, we're flipping all of it. By the end we're deciding who's actually more dangerous Rick, or Summer with Rick's toys. I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. Ground rules, how we're rewriting the multiverse, without a portal gun. So before we start body slamming the canon, we need some ground rules. What are we actually changing here? And how do we keep this from turning into a 40-minute fanfic where Rick and Summer just become hot topic god emperors of the multiverse? Here's the premise, clean and simple. We are running a structured alternate timeline where, from the literal pilot, Rick picks Summer as his primary sidekick instead of Morty. Not a couple swapped scenes, not that one time she tags along, I mean every classic Morty slot gets hard recast with Summer. Same episodes, same basic setups, totally different emotional grenade in the passenger seat. To keep it from melting your brain, we're going to move in rough chronological order through the big episode archetypes. So we'll start with pilot-style first adventures and school day chaos, roll into Meeseeks type Wish episodes, then hit Citadel arcs, Apocalypse worlds, family meltdown episodes, and finally those endgame universe-level threats. In each stop we're asking 2 questions. What does Summer do differently, and how does Rick respond when his sidekick is aggressive, competent, and low-key power-hungry instead of anxious and guilt-ridden? And believe it or not, this is researched. I have basically spent the last 100 hours rewatching every single Summer moment, like I'm building a legal case against a cartoon teenager. We're cataloguing the Devil Shop power trip, her warlord era in the Mad Max world, the time she casually embraces fascist Citadel politics, all of it, just to give you an idea of how sidekick Summer actually behaves when you hand her power and walk away. Because Morty and Summer are not interchangeable NPCs. Morty is anxious, constantly worried about what's illegal, and he's weirdly committed to being the moral speed bump. He cries, he confesses, he goes to funerals for people he accidentally helped murder, Summer. Summer is approval-hungry, brutally adaptable, socially ruthless, and way too comfortable sliding into power structures. She doesn't slow the crime down, she optimizes it. If you ask me, that's a hell of a different lever for Rick to be pulling every episode, so structurally buckle up. This breakdown is going to be fast and segmented, with recurring check-ins so you can track just how off the rails we are. We'll keep rating Rick's power level with Summer, a family fallout meter for Beth, Jerry, and poor sidelined Morty, and a multiverse stability rating so you know when reality is basically on life support. Every few minutes, we're also going to smash cut to wild alternates, Citadel politics where elite Ricks start recruiting Summers, apocalypse timelines where she's co-tyrant instead of traumatized kid, that kind of thing. Little pattern interrupts to remind you the butterfly effect here is massive. Anyway, with the rules locked in and sidekick Summer psychologically profiled, let's jump into episode 1 and see how fast this universe snaps. Rewriting the pilot, 2 a.m. in Summer's bedroom. So rewind the tape. Same driveway, same burp, same school is stupid rant. But this time, at 2 a.m., Rick doesn't kick in Morty's door. He portal guns straight into Summer's room. Different target, different pitch, completely different universe. You ready to see how fast this timeline snaps? Yeah, buckle up. Instead of Morty getting yanked out of bed and screamed at about a fresh start and a neutrino bomb, Rick's leaning in the doorway like a drunk college recruiter. Summer, you want to skip the whole high school popularity grind and fast track to cosmic relevance? That's not kidnapping, that's a TED Talk for unstable teenagers. And Summer, who is already doom-scrolling Instagram and hating everyone in her grade, hears the magic words, skip the line, jump the queue, be important now. Morty's pilot reaction is pure fear. Shaking, stuttering, borderline crying. Summer's first move? She negotiates. Okay, I'll go, but I'm not your background extra. I want my own ray gun, I want to say in the mission, and I'm probably going to need something I can flex at school. She's basically unionizing on the spot. It's still wildly illegal child endangerment, but she's treating it like a paid internship instead of a kidnapping. Jump to the first adventure. With Morty, the tone is screaming, running, traumatized 14-year-old getting smuggled through customs with megaseeds in his rectum. With Summer, you get a girl who watched one Mad Max world and immediately became Warlord CEO. She's trying to talk to the aliens, flirt with danger, name-drop Rick like he's LinkedIn clout. You know who my grandpa is? Smartest man in the universe, idiot. What's your tech stack? She's not clutching her pearls. She's asking if this crime comes with a brand deal. And Rick, totally different mode. With Morty, he has to slow down, dumb down, literally break his legs to keep him compliant. With Summer, he doesn't need training wheels. He can talk advanced science out loud, hand her a portal gun on day 1 and say, "Don't die, I'm busy." Believe it or not, that actually earns her more respect in his messed up value system. He starts testing boundaries faster, higher risk planets, more weapons, fewer safety checks. If you ask me, that's when the universe's life insurance policy starts sweating. Back home, the timeline divergent scoreboard starts racking up points immediately. Summer's social life? Warped. She's coming back to school with alien gadgets and trauma-chic stories that actually make her cooler, not weirder. Rick's respect level for his sidekick. Way higher, way earlier. She's not a Morty shield, she's a potential co-tyrant. And the family's perception? Beth now has to process that her crazy, irresponsible father is taking her daughter on nightly felony runs through space. Jerry's panicking, Morty's sidelined and jealous, and the dinner table becomes a low-budget ethics trial. And that's just episode 1. We haven't even hit the Cronenberg button yet. You want to see what happens when sidekick Summer walks into the Love Potion episode? I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. School, status, and the portal flex Summer's social power-up. So let's jump to Earth, where this upgrade really hurts. School. Morty walks into class just trying not to die of anxiety. Summer walks in thinking, how do I turn this into a hostile takeover? That's a hell of a different starting point. Give Morty a portal gun and he's sneaking off to escape math quizzes. Give Summer one and she's rebranding the entire student body like it's a failed startup. Picture the first proper school episode with sidekick Summer. She's not begging Rick to get her out of class. She's pitching him. Alien fashion drops that haven't evolved on this planet yet. time-dilated study pod so she can ace every test without losing a single TikTok scroll, and a literal remote that pauses bullies mid-sentence. You know how Morty gets shoved into lockers? Summer's installing dimensional locks on them and charging a subscription fee. Is it illegal? Absolutely. Is it kind of genius? Also yes. And then you hand this girl a Meeseeks box, buckle up. In Meeseeks and Destroy, Jerry just wants to fix his sad little golf swing. Summer, in this timeline, is not wasting a cosmic wish on sports. She's spawning Meeseeks to optimize her socials, inflate follow accounts with real aliens, deep dive rival accounts, and maybe accidentally leak some incriminating footage of the head cheerleader hanging out with a Cronenberg in the parking lot. For some reason, I feel like the Meeseeks Union would file a complaint. Just to give you an idea of how fast that escalates, one Meeseeks is tweaking her lighting, another is running predictive algorithms on who's about to be popular next week, and a third is engineering the perfect party that violates like 8 fire codes and at least 3 intergalactic treaties. Remember how the original Meeseeks situation got bad when Jerry wouldn't improve? Here, it gets bad because Summer keeps improving and won't stop. She's asking for more clout, more control, more everything. The box becomes a social arms race. How does Rick react to all this? With Morty, he's always annoyed. Ugh, school, whatever, it's dumb, let's go commit space crime. With Summer, he's entertained. This is practice. Weaponizing tech for petty teenage wars is just baby's first regime change. He's watching her orchestrate a high school popularity coup and going, yeah, that's basically intergalactic politics, but with worse music. If you ask me, he's probably prouder of this than any science fair. The side effect is, Earth starts noticing. Teachers see her GPA jump from barely trying to terrifying prodigy overnight. Principals catch glimpses of impossible gadgets. Classmates film glitches in reality on their phones. You keep that up for a few days and some bored NSA intern is flagging Summer Smith local anomaly. Rick wanted a camouflage Morty. He accidentally built a beacon, Summer. And the first major casualty of this glow-up is not a bully, it's Morty. Our boy quietly goes from main character to background NPC, watching his sister take his grandpa, his adventures and his narrative. And the next time Rick needs a sidekick for something truly awful, guess who doesn't even get asked? Morty on the bench, jealousy, resentment, and the first family fracture. So what happens to Morty when he's not the trauma sponge anymore? What does a Rick and Summer power duo actually leave behind on the couch? You get a new kind of horror. Morty as the stay-at-home side character. Every episode he watches that garage door open, Rick and Summer hop in the ship and he's stuck doing algebra, while they're out committing some probably illegal space crime. They come back with plasma burns, alien stickers on the windshield, and a dismembered Glorzo head in a jar, and Morty's contribution is a completed worksheet. At first he's relieved. No Cronenberg universes, no megaseeds in uncomfortable places. But the anxiety doesn't go away, it mutates. You know that feeling when you're left off the group chat? Imagine that, but the group chat is the multiverse. Morty hears them laughing about overthrowing a citadel, Summer bragging that she totally outnegotiated a council of Ricks, and suddenly his whole identity as the one who knows the truth evaporates. He never wanted the job, but he definitely doesn't want his sister being better at it. So his classic Morty panic starts curdling into something uglier. Jealousy first, then resentment. Not just toward Rick for swapping him out like a bad controller, but toward Summer for thriving in the role he barely survived. She's adapting to post-apocalyptic warlords like it's a study abroad program. She's speaking fluent portal gun. And every new scar on her arm is one less reason for anyone to listen to him about how dangerous Rick actually is. Meanwhile, Beth and Jerry are having a hell of a parental crisis. Beth, who already low-key worships Rick's brain, now has proof that her kid inherited the specialness. Believe it or not, that feels amazing for about 5 seconds. Then it hits her. Special to Rick means expendable to everyone else. She's watching her daughter disappear into the same black hole that stole her childhood, and she can't tell if she's proud or terrified. Jerry, on the other hand, just discovers a fresh new way to feel like garbage. Rick already thinks he's beneath him. Now Summer does too, and she's got intergalactic receipts. And Summer absolutely weaponizes that approval. Family argument about curfew? Rick says time is a construct. Beth questions her attitude. Rick says I'm the only one who really gets it. Jerry tries to parent. She drops, "Cool, I'll ask the guy who built a universe in a battery." Every adventure becomes social capital. Every portal hop another wedge between Beth and Jerry, and between Summer and the boring half of the family. Morty's stuck in the middle, stewing. He's the only one who remembers what it felt like to be the sidekick-shaped meat shield, and now nobody cares. You can almost see the multiverse branching off that feeling. Somewhere out there, there's a Morty who decides the only way to stop Rick and Summer isn't to talk them down. It's to find a different Rick. One who hates Rick Sanchez as much as he does. One who's willing to show a jealous, sidelined Morty just how bad things can really get. And when that Morty finally knocks on the wrong Rick's door, yeah, buckle up. Summer's learning curve, from tag-along to co-engineer. And when that Morty finally knocks on the wrong Rick's door, yeah, buckle up. Because while he's doing that, Summer is speedrunning her villain origin arc in the garage. Morty's whole deal is being emotional ballast. He screams, he cries, he asks, "Is this illegal?" while Rick is mid-war crime. Summer, she skips straight to, "Okay, what do I press?" Morty mostly reacts. Summer participates. Morty is the seatbelt. Summer is the NOS button. You swap those out, you're not getting the same ride, you're getting a different vehicle entirely. We've already seen the beta version of Apprentice Summer in Rickmancing the Stone. Morty's traumatized by divorce and war boys. Summer takes one look at a post-apocalyptic death cult and goes, "New friend group, who dis?" She adapts instantly, climbs the social ladder, and starts dating a dude made of sentient muscle and trauma. That's not just coping, that's field research. Jump to the Devil Shop episode. Rick's busy dunking on Satan with science. Summer quietly runs an entire cursed item retail operation, handles customers, and then co-designs a revenge campaign. Branding, marketing, torture equipment. Those are proto-supervillain skills, and if you ask me, Rick absolutely notices. He's not going to say, "Good job, kiddo." He's going to slide her a plasma saw and say, "You missed a spot." So what does her training arc look like if she's the official sidekick? Day one, she's not begging to survive, she's negotiating perks. I want my own portal gun, my own ship, and I'm not sharing a lab bench with Morty's old dismembered arms. And Rick, half out of pride and half out of sheer laziness, is going to cave way earlier than he ever would with Morty. Why build every device yourself when your granddaughter is basically a free unpaid intern with anger issues? Just to give you an idea of how fast this escalates, by the time Season 1 Morty is still screaming about Meeseeks and existential horror, Summer's tech proficiency level is already at junior mad scientist. She's maintaining the ship, tuning portal calibrations and running small side projects like, I don't know, destabilizing a minor monarchy on her lunch break. Morty asks what the button does. Summer installed the button. Psychologically, that's a hell of a drug. The more Summer succeeds, the more her whole identity fuses with Rick's equal. Not Rick's burden, not Rick's victim, equal. Every time she pulls off some galaxy-scale hack, it's one less reason to question his ethics, and one more reason to double down when things get morally ugly. You don't walk away from your co-engineer status just because a planet or two explodes, right? And here's the scary part, that Summer's tech proficiency level keeps climbing. Bronze tier, using gadgets. Silver tier, building them. Gold tier, arguing with Rick about design choices and winning. At that point, who's the sidekick, who's the boss? And what happens when a girl who finally feels like a god in the multiverse is asked to go back to algebra homework and part-time jobs? Keep that question in your head, because the moment someone tries to take the lab away from Summer Smith, the real multiversal damage starts. Citadel of Summers, rethinking the Rick sidekick economy. So if Summer grabs the lab and never lets go, what happens when you scale that up to an entire multiverse? Buckle up, because we're going to the Citadel, and you're not going to see a single sad Morty in a yellow shirt. Reimagine that place. No more endless Morty ghettos acting as emotional bubble wrap for Ricks. Instead, you've got whole glittering sectors of elite Summers, tactical Summers running war rooms, PR Summers crafting Rick propaganda, influencer Summers running Citadel social feeds, selling you girl boss multiverse domination as a lifestyle brand. It's not a Morty farm anymore, it's a LinkedIn nightmare. And just to give you an idea of how broken that is, remember why Ricks picked Mortys in the first place. Mortys are predictable, they're anxious, morally clingy, and statistically unlikely to overthrow you. You drag Morty into a genocidal space war, he cries, he pukes, He maybe files a complaint with his therapist someday. Summer? She sees a throne made of skulls and goes, "Cool, is it ergonomic?" That's a hell of a different risk profile. From a crime perspective, Morty is like carrying an emotional ankle monitor. He slows you down, makes you feel kind of bad about the illegal stuff. Summer is a co-defendant. She's ambitious, status-driven, and if you underpay her in power, she's probably going to unionize the sidekicks. Imagine a labor strike of Summers demanding better weapons, better ships, and equal say in which timeline gets destabilized today. The Citadel HR department would literally implode, and you know what you get once every Citadel fills up with overqualified teenage masterminds. A council of Summers, parallel to the council of Ricks but way more organized. The top Summers meet in secret group chats, trade intel on their Ricks, coordinate which dimensions to nudge, and quietly steer multiversal policy toward themselves. You think Ricks are paranoid now? Wait until they realize their sidekicks have a shadow government. Pattern interrupt. Who's really the sidekick at that point? Is Rick the genius, or just the ride? Our Rick C-137 drops into that mess with his Summer, and it gets extra spicy. Main timeline Summer already loved Citadel politics in the Rick Shankrick Demption. Give her a universe where Summers are the power brokers and she's not just tagging along, she's networking. Rick storms in wanting to burn the system down and she's like, "Cool, but can we capture it first?" If you ask me, that duo in a coup scenario is way scarier than Rick and Morty ever were. Because now you've got a Rick who hates authority paired with a Summer who wants to run it. He supplies the portal guns and doomsday tech. She supplies the alliances, the messaging, and the willingness to sell out 3 timelines for better optics. Believe it or not, the Citadel's biggest fear stops being a rogue Rick. It becomes the moment one Summer does the math, looks at her grandpa, and realizes she doesn't need a Rick at all. And when a Summer decides she's done being a sidekick, that's when the multiverse gets a new final boss. When Summer runs the apocalypse, Mad Max, but make it organized. So take that final boss Summer and rewind her a few seasons. Imagine if Rickmancing the Stone wasn't Summer's messy rebound from the divorce, but just another Tuesday for a girl who's already got 3 years of Rick mentorship under her belt. You don't get sad teen finds herself in the wasteland. You get experienced field commander discovers a startup apocalypse and immediately files for ownership. Remember how fast she clocked that Mad Max world ran on one rule, strength? Now picture Summer walking through that same rust bucket desert already fluent in Rick's tech, politics, and casual war crimes. She's not improvising a warlord persona to cope. She's running a market analysis. Who's got the water, who's got the guns, who's got the dumbest hat, and she's thinking, cool, this scales. In the original episode, Summer kind of stumbles into being the muscle queen. Here, she shows up with a portal gun, a collapsible mech suit, and a PowerPoint in her head. She doesn't just become a respected fighter, she becomes HR, logistics, and propaganda. She's standardizing raider armor, unionizing the scavengers, and, if you ask me, probably implementing a punch card system for pillaging. 10 raids, your 11th murder is free. And Rick usually treats emotional arcs like they're contagious. But a Summer who can stabilize a war-torn dimension, that's actually useful. That's, I don't have to get off the ship, useful. Suddenly he's not dragging Morty into war zones. He's dropping Summer into collapsing regimes like she's his own personal coup in a can. Need a dictator installed? Need an old one removed? Need a warlord to sign a peace treaty at gunpoint? Summer's your girl. Rick just supplies the gadgets, the air support, and the plausible deniability. This is where it gets illegal in a fun way. What started as a coping mechanism becomes a portfolio. Summer doesn't leave the wasteland behind, she franchises it. One world where she's queen, another where she's the strategic advisor, a third where she's the anonymous masked champion who, for some reason, owns all the refineries. She's collecting planets like social media accounts. This is my apocalypse aesthetic page. This is my corporate dystopia. This is my religious cult collab with Gearhead. Rick's response? Shrug. It keeps her entertained, keeps Morty alive, and technically gives him forward operating bases all over the multiverse. Believe it or not, for a guy who hates responsibility, having your granddaughter run 5 war economies is incredibly convenient. Need troops, need rare minerals, need a place to dump evidence of, I don't know, a light genocide. Summer's worlds have you covered, and once she's got, say, 5 or 10 of these little disaster kingdoms up and running, they stop being isolated episodes and start looking like a supply chain. She links them. Trade routes, shared tech, standardized uniforms. One apocalypse exports fuel, another sends soldiers, a third manufactures Rick-approved weapons. You're not looking at random wastelands anymore. You're looking at the early stages of a multiverse-spanning regime that doesn't need a council of Ricks, because it has something worse: infrastructure. So what happens when those worlds stop just trading with each other and start coordinating their enemies list? Buckle up, because the next move on Summer's board makes the Citadel look like a summer camp for divorced dads with portal guns. Beth, Jerry, and the good parent illusion. So what happens when Summer's empire building isn't just out in the stars but parked in the Smith driveway every night? You don't just get a new sidekick, you get a full-blown parenting crisis wearing a horse surgeon's coat and a dad bod. Let's start with Beth, because this is basically her wish-fulfillment nightmare. She already treats Rick like a walking scholarship program for being special. The second Summer becomes his chosen partner, Beth doesn't see danger, she sees legacy. She's gifted, Jerry. She's chosen. This is her destiny. Lady, your kid is doing war crimes with a man who drinks jet fuel, not auditioning for Space Harvard. Beth's projection issues go into overdrive. Every red flag becomes a quirky enrichment opportunity. Summer comes home covered in glauzoichor. That's hands-on biology. She destabilizes a minor monarchy in a pocket dimension. Leadership skills. Rick hands her a portal gun and a killsat login. Beth is probably bragging about it at wine night like it's Model UN with extra steps. She has to believe it's all part of some grand gifted kid arc, because the alternative is admitting she signed the permission slip for intergalactic child endangerment. Meanwhile, Jerry. Oh boy. Jerry was already losing every power struggle to a 14-year-old boy with anxiety. Now he has to watch his teenage daughter literally outrank him in cosmic importance. The universe calls Rick when it's on fire. Rick calls Summer. Jerry calls Comcast. Guess who gets put on hold? You can feel his insecurity curdling. He's going to swing between two modes, desperate dad cop and flight risk. 1 week he's trying to ban portal travel like it's screen time. The next he's accidentally staying at a motel because he needs space from the portal tank parked on his lawn. And every time Summer saves the planet on a school night, his authority loses another 10 hit points. Now plug this into family therapy. Remember those episodes where Morty and Summer drag their shared trauma into Dr. Wong's office. Reroll that scene. Morty's the bitter outsider now, the kid who stayed home and did his math homework while his sister became Rick's co-dictator. Summer, golden child mode unlocked, sits there insisting everything is fine. I'm finally doing something that matters, Mom. You should be proud. How do you argue with your kid's self-worth when it's backed by a fleet? And here's where it gets really illegal on the moral level. The outsourcing. Beth and Jerry start saying the quiet part out loud. Rick's in charge of that part of her life. Curfew. Rick's call. Weapons. Rick's call. Ethics. Definitely not Rick's call, but they pretend anyway. They basically hand over parental authority to the least responsible adult in the multiverse because, hey, the lights stay on and the mortgage gets auto-paid by some shell corporation on Gazorpazorp. Believe it or not, the scariest part isn't the aliens or the coups or the body count on Summer's watch. It's how normal they make it feel at dinner. As long as Summer walks through the door mostly alive and Rick's tech keeps the power bill at zero, they can all pretend this is just a weird extracurricular. And if you ask me, that quiet little lie at the table, that's the real horror movie we're about to walk into next. Sponsor, Break from the Void. If Summer sold out and cashed in. And speaking of quiet little lies, do you love destabilizing fragile civilizations, but hate doing it on an empty stomach? Yeah, that sentence probably put you on an FBI watch list just for hearing it. Don't worry, it's not a real ad. It's just exactly the kind of thing Summer would read with a straight face if it came with a promo code and a free hoodie. Because if Rick's dragging Morty around for emotional camouflage, Summer is the one who's going to turn the apocalypse into a brand deal. You think she's overthrowing post-apocalyptic warlords in Rickmancing the Stone for free? No. In the Summer as Sidekick timeline, that's a Mad Max-inspired Wasteland Glutes workout program, with a 6-episode funnel and a premium tier where she personally yells at you. Buckle up, because Summer would absolutely be the one negotiating sponsorships with alien megacorps between coups. Hey Glorzo Hive Mind, love the facehugger aesthetic, super on brand. Have you considered a Citadel Summer capsule collection? Suddenly you've got 40,000 identical Summers from the Citadel running a multiverse-wide fashion line. Cropped jackets, portal-proof eyeliner, and a little tag that says, made in Dimension C137, probably in violation of like 12 labour laws, and she wouldn't stop at clothes. Get Rick Quick self-help course for gullible aliens? Of course. 10 modules on how to stop being a beta Morty and start being an alpha Summer. Lesson 1. Seize power. Lesson 2. Emotionally compartmentalize your war crimes. Lesson 3. If you ask me, don't read the refund policy. The wild part is it actually fits her character. Morty thinks in terms of guilt and survival. Summer thinks in terms of clout, optics, and, for some reason, follow accounts in dimensions that don't even have the internet. Every universe is both a playground and a potential market. You remember when she took over the Devil's Shop and turned it into a cursed item empire? That's not a one-off. That's her business plan. Rick, being Rick, doesn't care as long as the branding doesn't slow him down or make anything technically more illegal than it already is. So while he's casually wiping out a miniverse or crashing another Citadel regime, Summer's in the corner cutting a deal. Use code SUMMER20 for 20% off your first morally compromising decision, and in that fake ad read, you can sneak in the whole story so far. Are you a disgruntled Morty watching your grandpa and sister topple governments without you? Have you been replaced by an army of Citadel Summers who do the same crimes but with better hair? Try Not Therapy by Summer Smith, the only service that guarantees you'll still feel bad, just with better lighting. Believe it or not, that's basically Morty's arc in one sponsorship. Anyway, slam cut back to reality. The real product Summer is selling isn't leggings or murder yoga. It's herself to Rick's worldview. And when your soul is the brand, the next step in this partnership gets a hell of a lot darker. Who's really in charge? Power struggles in the garage. So what happens when the brand starts arguing with the founder? When Rick and Summer stops being a mentorship and turns into a hostile takeover in the garage? Early on it's cute. Summer's the eager intern. Rick's the drunk CEO of Reality, Inc. She idolizes him, takes notes, probably color codes her war crimes in a planner. But buckle up because Summer is not Morty. Morty slows Rick down with guilt and nausea. Summer speeds him up with ambition and rage. And once her skills start catching up, she's not asking, is this wrong? She's asking, why aren't we going harder? Picture a mission where they're tracking some rival scientist, basically evil Rick with better hair. Rick's plan? Classic. Sabotage the lab, steal the tech, bounce. Summer's plan? Why don't we just preemptively assassinate him, wipe his backups in the Citadel, and install a puppet government on his home planet so no one ever funds another version of him? Rick, the guy who built a neutrino bomb for fun, is suddenly like, okay, that's overkill. When Rick Sanchez is your moral brake pedal, you know the car is illegal. Or imagine a Cronenberg-level outbreak starting on some backwater world. Old Rick would either cure it, weaponize it, or abandon it. Sidekick Summer Rick. She's pitching, we keep it, quarantine it, and rent it out as a live-fire training ground for bounty hunters. Subscription model, season passes, merch. Rick's staring at her like, I was just going to sell them a fake antidote, but sure, late-stage capitalism speedrun. And here's the real problem. Rick does not like equals. He barely tolerates other Ricks. The whole Citadel exists because he can't handle competition without turning it into a fascist LinkedIn. So a Summer who can argue with him on scientific and tactical grounds. Who can say, no, your plan's inefficient, Grandpa, here's the math. That's not just annoying, it's an identity crisis. Dude might be the smartest man in the multiverse, but if you ask me, he's emotionally one insecure Reddit thread away from a meltdown. So how do these fights end? Badly, usually. Sometimes Rick just pulls rank with raw power. Freeze gun, portal trap, we're leaving, conversation over. Other times he goes full emotional manipulation. Wow, Summer, you're sounding a lot like your dad right now. And she backs off because that's a hell of an insult in that house. But every now and then, he lets her win. Not because he trusts her, because he wants data. He'll hand her the keys to an entire planet and say, fine, you run it. Puppet government, enforced happiness, mandatory Summer brand empowerment seminars. Just to give you an idea of how dark that gets, imagine the Devil's Antique Shop episode, but scaled to a civilization. She centralizes control, optimizes the cruelty, and Rick's in orbit taking notes like it's a science fair. And the more he tests her, the sharper she gets. Believe it or not, he's accidentally building the one person in the multiverse who might actually outplay him long term. And she's sleeping down the hall from his daughter. So what happens when the experiment realizes it's the one holding the scalpel? The dark turn. When Summer stops asking for permission. That scalpel moment? It happens way sooner with Summer than it ever would with Morty. One day Rick passes out in the garage after a bender, and Summer's just standing there, staring at the portal gun, the ship, and like 3 half-finished doomsday devices, and you can see the light bulb go off. Wait, why am I waiting for him? She's already been his co-pilot in a Mad Max divorce arc, she's already negotiated with the Galactic Federation, she's already run a literal cursed item empire. So she copies his portal schematics, syncs his contacts, and starts small, a quick hop to an alien flea market to flip some stolen tech. A side hustle selling vintage Earth junk to rich idiots in the Cygnus system. You know, regular teen stuff plus interstellar smuggling, which is definitely illegal in like 12 galaxies. But it escalates fast, because Summer doesn't just visit worlds, she clocks their weaknesses. Those post-apocalyptic warlords from Rickmancing the Stone. In this timeline, she's calling them up later asking, yeah, hey, what would it cost to topple your neighbour? Suddenly she's brokering regime changes between classes. One portal is a black market drop, the next is a coup. By mid-semester, she's technically committed enough off-world terrorism to earn her own Galactic Federation wanted poster. And without Morty's constant guilt seizures, or Beth's rare but brutal mum speeches, her moral compass is calibrated to exactly one thing: Rick's sarcasm. If he jokes that collateral damage is the cost of doing business, she treats that like a TED talk. A city gets Cronenberged? Hey, cost of the mission. A rebellion fails and a puppet dictator slaughters thousands. She files it under learning experience and optimizes the next one. Believe it or not, that's the stable version of her. We've already seen the beta build, Summer gleefully torturing the devil in Something Rick This Way Comes. Summer going full authoritarian queen in the Mad Max world. Summer instantly embracing Rick's prison break chaos in the Rickshank Rickdemption. Those are weekend field trips. Now imagine that energy with years of reinforcement, daily portal access, and no one telling her to go to class. You're not getting a sidekick, you're breeding a co-tyrant. How does Rick react when his own monster starts speedrunning his playbook? Part of him is proud. This is the granddaughter who doesn't flinch, who can hold a gun, negotiate a treaty, and bully a hive mind all before breakfast. Part of him is threatened, because she's improvising with his tech in ways he can't perfectly predict. And part of him is just annoyed, because suddenly he's spending days cleaning up her messes. Now he's tracing her portal signatures to shut down a civil war she kind of overcooked. He's hacking galactic databases to erase her face from a most wanted list. He's arguing over whether vaporizing a rebel moon was strategic or a little extra Summer. It's a hell of a role reversal, and this is the real turning point. From here on out, you're not looking at Rick with a different sidekick, you're looking at a two-person empire the multiverse has to actively respond to. The Citadel doesn't just profile Ricks anymore, they start running simulations on Summers. So buckle up, because once other powers notice the Rick-Summer axis, the arms race gets a lot uglier very quickly. Multiverse response. When Ricks and Mortys fight back. Once the Citadel starts running simulations on Summers, you know what comes next. Paperwork. Like terrifying reality-scale paperwork. Picture some exhausted Citadel analyst opening a fresh file. Subject: Rick C137. Sidekick: not a Morty. Sidekick is... Summer? You can almost hear the collective spit take, because in their charts, every time this Rick and this Summer drop into a universe, it goes from unstable democracy to Summer-branded autocracy in like 3 days. And I'm not exaggerating that branding part. You'd have timelines where the flag is literally just her selfie. Emergency broadcasts replaced with her ranting about efficiency. Whole planets running on Summer Standard Time because she decided sleep is for betas. The Citadel would start color-coding these worlds. Yellow for Rick damaged, red for Rick destroyed, and hot pink for Summer personally took over and installed loyalty apps. Believe it or not, even other Ricks are going to look at that and go, okay, that's a bit much. Now, what happens when you start phasing Mortys out of the equation? You get blowback. Imagine Mortys across the multiverse watching their replacements on Citadel TV. Tonight on Summer News, another Morty sidelined, another dimension optimized. That's a hell of a way to radicalize a bunch of anxious 14-year-olds. You'd absolutely see a Morty resistance form. Secret Discord servers, encrypted portal routes, little yellow shirt militias calling themselves things like the Council of Narrative Balance. These are kids who've been gaslit, Cronenberged, emotionally wrecked, and then told they're statistically replaceable. Now they're also obsolete. So they start banding together in the cracks of the Citadel, hijacking training pods, leaking Rick's summer mission footage, passing around manifestos like, "We're not emotional support animals, we are protagonists." It's petty, it's messy, and if you ask me, it's probably the most organised Mortys have ever been. On the Rick side, you get a split. Rogue Ricks who already hate the Council. They look at Summer and go, "Free chaos agent with built-in ambition? I don't know, I'm kind of here for it." They'll feed her intel, tech, maybe even fanboy a little, but the conservative Citadel boomer Ricks, they're freaking out. The whole Morty system was a buffer. Emotional camouflage, moral speed bump, cosmic airbag. Summer breaks that. She accelerates Rick instead of softening him, which is kind of illegal in their unspoken social contract. And right in the middle of this arms race is our Morty, the original Smith Morty, the one who watched Rick and Summer bond over Mad Max murder tourism, who got demoted from main sidekick to backup emotional hostage. That kid is sitting on a grudge so big it might as well have its own portal frequency. He's seen Rick at his worst and Summer at her most power drunk. He knows exactly how they think, and more importantly, how they underestimate him. So imagine a splinter Rick, some disillusioned post-Citadel survivor, approaching our Morty with a proposition. Help me stop them. Morty becomes the face of the resistance, the Morty who finally refuses to be a shield and decides to be a scalpel. You get strategy meetings where Mortys and Ricks actually agree on something for once. This Rick-Summer axis has to be contained before every universe gets a matching Summer statue. And just when that coalition finally forms, just when they're ready to strike, that's exactly when Rick and Summer notice they're being hunted and decide to escalate first. High-stakes episodes, rewritten, Unity, Evil Morty, and beyond. So, when that coalition finally forms and the universe decides, okay, we're done with this Rick-Summer power couple, that's exactly when you have to ask, what happens to the big, emotional, high-stakes episodes you remember? Do they still hurt, or do they just get upgraded into war crimes with better lighting? Let's start with Unity. In the original, Rick's X is a walking red flag made of consent violations, and Morty and Summer are basically the ethics committee. Now swap it. Summer's the sidekick, already obsessed with control and status. She doesn't see Unity as a warning, she sees a LinkedIn mentor. You get Summer walking through that stadium of synchronized aliens going, wait, you can just manage people like software. Rick's drunk and heartbroken, but with Summer hyping up the efficiency, he doesn't spiral into suicide territory. He starts drafting patch notes, less crying in the garage, more talking about scalable governance. It's still illegal as hell on like every galactic level, but emotionally, the episode shifts from tragedy to a TED talk on benevolent dictatorship. And if you ask me, that's way scarier. Now Evil Morty. In a universe where Mortys are the downtrodden, his whole shtick works. But imagine a Citadel where Summers are already the ambitious tacticians, running campaigns, commanding security, literally designing the curriculum that keeps Mortys dumb. Suddenly, Evil Morty isn't a clever outlier. He's a glitch in a Summer-dominated machine. His rise gets harder, so he has to get nastier. No more subtle political maneuvering. He's probably going to start targeting Summers specifically, maybe even engineering a universe-wide Summer purge just to stand out. You wanted one kid rebelling against Rick's system? Cool. Now you've got an arms race between the most manipulative Morty and a whole demographic of girlboss authoritarians. Believe it or not, I don't know, I'm kind of here for it. Jump to the Rickshank redemption. In canon, Morty's big move is an emotional plea to Summer about how toxic Rick is. With Summer as the ride-or-die sidekick, that scene dies in the writer's room. Instead, she's in the prison break from frame 1, feeding Rick intel, coordinating portal hops, and weaponizing her harmless teenager act on Federation guards. The jailbreak stops being a chaotic escape and turns into a hostile takeover. Fewer heartfelt speeches, more pre-planted bombs. Rick still collapses the Galactic Federation economy. With Summer, he times it to maximize panic, stock grabs, and power vacuums. The body count goes up, the remorse goes down, and any remaining may be Rick's kind of the hero, defense gets a life sentence. Even the bottle episodes go colder. In Total Recall, Summer's not agonizing over whether Mr. Poopy Butthole is real. She's speedrunning Parasite execution, more bullets, fewer debates. In Rick Potion number 9, Morty's horror at Cronenberging the world is the whole point. Summer? She'd grieve, sure, but she'd also be the one already scouting the next timeline, tagging resources and telling Rick which dimension is the best strategic reset. Whole realities become expendable, like save files you delete when the run goes bad. Put all that together and you don't just tweak tone, you rewrite the show's moral spine. Those big gut punch episodes stop feeling like chaotic tragedies Rick stumbles into and start reading as calculated operations run by a two-person syndicate. Rick provides the tech, Summer provides the will to use it, and the universe stops being a cosmic joke and starts looking like a chessboard they're actually trying to win. And if that's where the story goes, you have to wonder, who's left to stop them? The broken Mortys, the bitter Ricks, or someone even worse waiting in the wings? The Empire of Two, Rick and Summer as co-tyrants. So what happens if nobody stops them? What if the bitter Ricks and broken Mortys lose, and we end up with something way worse? A stable Rick-Summer empire that actually works. Yeah, buckle up because this is the part where the joke stops being haha wacky grandpa and starts being, oh, that's how you get a fascist multiverse. On paper, their division of labour is kind of terrifyingly efficient. Rick handles all the high-level stuff. Portal lattice networks, citadel hacking, weaponized miniverses, contingency plans for cosmic entities that eat timelines for breakfast. He's the CTO of evil. Summer? She's the COO, HR, and propaganda ministry rolled into one. She's on the ground, turning Rick's tech into actual governance, drafting rules, picking which locals get power armor, and deciding who gets re-educated in a Summer-branded loyalty camp when they post the wrong meme. The worlds they control stop looking like random crime scenes and start reading as organized territory. Picture a planet with instant healthcare, food printers on every block, and a sky full of Rick's satellites watching you blink. Free energy, free travel, zero privacy. You get freedom, but it's Rick's version. You're free from religion, free from tradition, free from meaning. If you ask me, it's the world's most efficient midlife crisis. And every institution has Summer's fingerprints all over it. Ambition academies that reward kids for snitching, combat sports leagues where loyalty points buy upgrades, and morning assemblies where you recite a pledge to the Smith regime like it's a TikTok trend. Why does this nightmare actually function? Because they're filling each other's gaps in the worst way possible. Rick finally has a sidekick who doesn't slow him down with guilt. Summer isn't Morty. She's not asking, is this illegal? She's asking, can we scale it? She learns portal tech faster, adapts to alien cultures like she did in that Mad Max wasteland, and she actively chases Rick's approval. Just to give you an idea of how bad that combo is, every time Rick is about to self-sabotage out of depression, Summer's ambition kicks him back into empire-building mode. Summer, in return, gets everything her original life never gave her. No more ignored older sister energy, no more fighting Beth and Jerry for scraps of attention. Out here, she's a co-tyrant. People wear her face on armbands. There are literal Summer Solutions bureaus where disputes are settled with a mix of therapy speak and laser pistols. Believe it or not, I don't know. I'm kind of here for it as a satire, but as an actual political system, it's a hell of a red flag. The cost? Entire civilizations get remodeled around the moods of a depressed genius and a formerly insecure teenager. One bad day for Rick is an orbital bombardment. One bad breakup for Summer is an emergency decree that bans dating apps on 6 planets. The only checks and balances are awkward family dinners back on Earth, where Beth half-heartedly asks if they're being safe while Rick has a kill satellite keyed to Jerry's heartbeat. And you have to ask, is this actually worse than canon? In the show we know, Rick's chaos is spiky. Huge crimes, long depressive slumps, tons of self-sabotage. Here, Summer's drive turns that same chaos into a steady, scalable system. Would you rather live under random Rick events, or a functioning Rick Summer empire that never turns off. Keep that in mind, because the next step is seeing what happens when someone finally tries to rebel against it, when Morty finally fights back. So what happens when someone finally says no to the Rick Summer empire? Not a protest sign, not a sad Jerry speech. I mean an actual illegal multiversal coup attempt from the kid who got cut from the roster. Morty doesn't snap all at once. It's years of being the bench warmer in his own show. He's stuck at home doing makeup homework while Summer portals back covered in alien blood like it's junior varsity lacrosse practice. Beth shrugs. Jerry pretends it's fine. Rick calls it character development and grabs another drink. You watch the family normalize war crimes as a quirky after-school activity, and Morty's the only one still flinching. Remember early Morty? Shaky, stuttering, kind of the morality pet. That kid has to sit through dinner while Summer casually mentions vaporizing a resistance cell because they looked at Rick weird. Buckle up, because every time they laugh it off, that guilt you saw in Cronenberg World, it curdles. Morty starts keeping a notebook. Dates, planets, casualties. Not for a school project, for a future trial. Enter his co-conspirator, an alternate Rick who already lost his own Summer to this exact pipeline. This guy's a walking cautionary tale in a lab coat. His Summer didn't just become a sidekick, she became the boss, and his whole dimension paid the price. If you ask me, he's part grieving grandpa, part domestic terrorist, and 100% done pretending this isn't a crime spree with good branding. So he finds our Morty. 2 rejects, 1 shared grudge. Alternate Rick has the blueprints, the portal frequencies, the weak spots in our Rick's tech. Morty has the psychological cheat codes. When Rick lets his guard down, what Summer still secretly fears, exactly which memories hurt the most. It's a hell of a team-up and not in the fun Avengers way. When they finally hit, it's not just lasers and portal traps, it's a family intervention with nukes. Morty calls Summer out in front of Rick's whole authoritarian upgrade. You used to care if people died, Summer. Now you're speedrunning genocide for Grandpa's approval. Summer fires back that Morty's just hiding behind ethics because he was too scared to keep up. Cowardice versus cruelty. Humanity versus grow up. The universe is awful. Pick your poison. Rick's reaction. That's the really illegal part emotionally. He's watching Morty weaponize the same trauma Rick's been speedrunning away from since episode 1. There's pride that Summer became his perfect co-pilot, and, believe it or not, the tiniest flicker of regret that Morty finally learned his lessons. Just not the ones Rick wanted. Do they blow up the regime? Do they just blow up each other? The details get lost in portal fire and timeline shrapnel. What's clear is the damage sticks. This isn't goofy, haha, we ruined a universe, grab a new one anymore. This is a permanent fracture in the Smith family and a multiverse that now knows Rick Summer empires can be challenged. And the scary part? The next section is where you see who's waiting to fill that power vacuum. Timeline. Fallout. Can you ever go back to normal Smith family? So what does after even look like for this family? Like, how do you go back to arguing about math homework when your grandpa and your sister just tried to speedrun Galactic Tyrant as a bonding activity? Best case first, because you kind of need a fantasy buffer. In the softest, most network notes-approved timeline, Rick and Summer get depowered, contained or collared by whoever wins the multiversal slap fight. Maybe it's the Citadel, maybe it's Space Beth, maybe it's some new council of traumatized Mortys who finally unionized. Either way, the Empire falls. No more god-tier gadgets, no more instant compliance rays. Summer's back in her room with a cracked phone screen and a GPA. Rick's in a basement lab on probation, pretending the ankle monitor isn't killing his vibe. But even that win is a hell of a curse if you ask me. Beth has to look at her daughter and admit, this started because she wanted Rick's approval so badly she kept letting him in. The same, I'm special because my dad is a genius complex that made her defend Rick's every crime just produced a literal household dictator. That's not a quirky character flaw anymore. That's complicity. Jerry, meanwhile, either doubles down on denial, it wasn't that bad, she's home now, let's watch TV, or finally snaps, packs a duffel, and bails to some sad apartment in another dimension where the worst thing that happens is a HOA meeting. And Morty doesn't get to be the whiny sidekick again. He's the kid who led a resistance against his own sister and grandfather. He's made illegal deals with alien militias, watched friends die in days that felt like years, and probably pulled the trigger on versions of Rick that looked way too familiar. You don't just slide back into Orgy's Rick after that. He's got war stories now. He's seen what happens when someone actually stands up to Rick and wins. Or almost wins. Flip it. Worst case, Rick and Summer keep the throne. They beat everyone. They stabilize their rule. No ankle monitors, just crowns. And then, in one of those rare, horrible, sober moments, both of them have to sit with the bill. Summer knows every planet pacified, every Morty crushed underfoot was a step on her ladder. She wanted to be more than a background character so badly she became a god. Lose the power later? She's stuck with the memory of liking it. Keep it? She's stuck with the knowledge of exactly who she stepped on. Pattern interrupt. You think Rick's fine, right? He won. But this is his core wound on loop. He finally found a partner who wasn't a dumb buffer, someone he actually respected, and he did what he always does, weaponized the bond, then broke it. Whether they fall out in a coup or just emotionally ice each other out, he's recreated his own trauma in 4K. Every time he looks at Summer, it's proof his favourite belief is correct. Everything he touches gets ruined, even the people who can keep up, and that's the real punchline the show keeps circling. Once you've seen the multiverse, once you've been a god or a rebel or both in the same week, normal Smith family isn't a setting you can reload. The house, the school, the dinner table, those are tiny dioramas now. You can sit back down in them, sure, but you're always going to hear the echo of that other life where you were important enough to break entire timelines. Next up, we're going to talk about who actually benefits from that kind of permanent upgrade, because it might not be any Smith at all. Who's more dangerous, Rick alone or Rick with Summer? So who's actually scarier? Rick flying solo, Rick with Morty, or Rick with Summer riding shotgun and asking to go faster? You'd think lonely, suicidal super genius is peak danger, right? Believe it or not, that's not the final boss version. Buckle up, because here's the comparison chart in human words. Rick plus Morty is chaotic, guilty, and constantly tripping over its own conscience. Rick drags Morty into some illegal nightmare. Morty panics, cries, maybe vomits, and that emotional car crash slows Rick down just enough that the damage stays semi-local. Planet destroyed, sure. Timeline ruined, okay. But it's usually one planet, one timeline. The sentence is cosmic but still technically countable. Rick plus Summer is a different crime entirely. That's not chaos, that's structure. That's an empire with HR. Just to give you an idea of how fast this escalates, think about Summer's resume. In Rickmancing the Stone, Morty's off doing emotional side quests, and Summer instantly becomes Wasteland Girl Boss Supreme. She doesn't just survive, she reorganizes a Mad Max hellscape into a functioning cult of personality. In the Devil Shop episode, she goes from part-time retail to running a curse-based startup in, days. She learns systems, then she centralizes power. She's basically linked in for authoritarianism. Now add Rick. You've got a teenager who adapts to violence like it's a new social media app, who actively wants Rick's approval, and who doesn't freeze the way Morty does. Morty sees a genocide and short circuits. Summer sees a wasteland and asks, "So, what can we do with this?" Morty is a brake. Summer is an accelerator. Morty's fear, his guilt, his "oh my god, Rick, we can't do that" slows the operation. Every time he breaks down, Rick has to waste time gaslighting him, memory wiping him, or dragging him back into the ship. It's messed up, but that emotional friction keeps some of Rick's worst ideas stuck in prototype. With Summer, that friction flips. She's the one saying, "Why stop at one world? Why not fix the whole dimension? Why not overthrow the Citadel?" If you ask me, that's when Rick stops being a chaotic criminal and starts being a structured threat. Less serial killer, more warlord CEO. Now, tiny counterpoint before we crown them multiversal Bonnie and Clyde. Summer getting that powerful might eventually force Rick to be slightly more responsible. Not morally, just strategically. If your sidekick is smart enough to outplay you, you can't be drunk in a garage 24/7. You have to manage your partner so she doesn't stage a coup. That responsibility is still in service of empire, not ethics. But it does mean fewer random implosions and more 5-year plans. And that's the nightmare. The scariest Rick isn't the one ready to eat a bullet. It's the one who finally finds a partner that doesn't hold him back. Not bird person, not unity, his teenage granddaughter with something to prove. Rick alone burns everything around him. Rick with Summer builds something that keeps burning on schedule. Anyway, if that's the power duo, who's left to stop them? Up next, we're going to see what happens when the rest of the Smith family realizes they're living under a two-person sci-fi dictatorship. Final verdict: the Rick and Summer timeline, summed up. So when you zoom out on the Rick and Summer timeline, what do you actually get? Cute grandpa-granddaughter bonding, or a two-person regime change that accidentally speedruns the fall of civilization? Buckle up, because this what if basically turns into a season-long red flag. It starts stupidly small, 2 a.m., Summer's bedroom, Rick mumbling something about needing a co-pilot with a spine, and boom, she's in the ship before she's even fully awake. By the time you get to that first week of school, she's already using portal access and alien favors to run power plays in the hallway. You know how Morty spends half the pilot screaming? Summer's blackmailing the principal by Friday. From there, the curve is insane. Early buy-in turns into rapid skill growth. Rick hands her a portal gun, just to hold. She's doing basic coordinates by the end of the episode. A couple arcs later, she's running her first independent missions. Weapon drops, Citadel data heists, the kind of stuff Morty would need 3 seasons and a breakdown to even attempt. And just to give you an idea of how far it goes, we end up with Citadel Summers, an entire political block of hyper-competent, slightly fascist granddaughters who all took Rick's chaos as a business plan. That's your first big inflection point. The second is the Apocalypse Empire phase. Drop Summer into a Mad Max world and she doesn't just survive, she starts doing HR. She's centralizing power, standardizing raids, turning a wasteland into a franchise. Rick's like, cool, more toys, and she's like, cool, more territory. You get family fractures as collateral damage, Beth trying to rationalize it, Jerry being terrified, and Morty quietly building a resistance of kids and variant Mortys who are tired of being NPCs in Rick and Summer's shared power fantasy. By the time the multiverse pushes back, the tone has snapped. The Morty resistance, the Citadel backlash, whole timelines refusing portal traffic. That final confrontation rips away any illusion that these are fun adventures. Morty's not just whining anymore, he's leading a rebellion. Summer's not tagging along, she's co-authoring the nightmare. Rick has to pick between the grandkid who gave him her fear and the one who gave him her ambition. And if you ask me, that's the first time his I Don't Care act actually looks illegal. And that's the real thematic punch. Swapping Morty for Summer doesn't just change the sidekick, it exposes how fragile Rick's emotional camouflage is when he's paired with someone who wants to build on his damage instead of survive it. Morty hands over his insecurity and Rick weaponizes it. Summer hands over her drive and Rick industrializes it. Both are dangerous, but one trend's sitcom, the other trend's straight-up dystopian sci-fi. Which is probably why the real show keeps Summer part-time. Full-time Summer turns the series from dark comedy about a messed-up family into case study in charismatic authoritarianism starring your grandpa. Fun to imagine, way harder to keep watchable without completely losing the heart. I don't know, I'm kind of here for it as an AU, but you can feel how fast it curdles. Anyway, we've seen the Empire. Next, let's talk Fallout. Because a Rick and Summer dictatorship doesn't just reshape the multiverse, it permanently rewires what Morty, Beth, and even Jerry are willing to forgive. Your turn. Rewrite the show with Summer in the passenger seat. So let's do the dangerous part and hand you the keys to this timeline. If Summer's riding shotgun full-time now, which episode are you corrupting first? Pick one episode, swap Morty for Summer, and tell me exactly how the ending changes. Does she overthrow King Jellybean? Does she unionize the Meeseeks? Does she help evil Morty? Or replace him? Buckle up, because I'm not just asking for she'd be cooler. I want the messy version. Take something like Meeseeks and Destroy, and imagine Summer as the one pushing Rick to go further instead of pulling him back. Does she convince him to weaponize Meeseeks as an army? Do we end with a citadel of Summerseeks? You tell me what crime goes extra illegal when she's the one saying, do it you won't. And while you're already rewriting canon in the comments, give me your custom episode drops. I'm talking full fan writer mode, fake Rick and Summer titles plus a one-sentence pitch. Ricktatorship of Summer. Rick accidentally hands Summer admin rights to the multiverse and immediately regrets it. Summergeddon. Summer weaponizes the portal gun to crash every X's universe at once. Go wild. Short, punchy, one sentence. The best ones? Believe it or not, I might feature them on screen, or even break one down beat by beat in a follow-up video and actually calculate the prison sentence Rick racks up just trying to impress her. Now, central question time, because this is the part that's going to start fights. Who's ultimately more dangerous? Rick with Morty or Rick with Summer? Who creates more collateral damage? Who commits the bigger war crimes? Rick plus Morty is chaos with training wheels. Rick plus Summer is no training wheels, no brakes downhill. Drop your vote and your legal argument. I want to see Rick and Morty fans turning the comments into a mock trial. Which duo gets the longer sentence, and why? And if you want to see this turn into a whole cursed anthology of sidekick timelines, you know how to steer the ship. Likes, subs, and comments are basically our portal gun here. You want, what if Jerry became Rick's sidekick, where every adventure is 90% crying and 10% tax fraud. You want Citadel of Summers, full breakdown, where elite Ricks only recruit girlboss warlords with pink hair and unresolved dad issues. Say it. The more you feed this, the more we're probably going to map out every illegal timeline Rick accidentally spawns. Just to give you an idea of how weird this can get, I'm already picturing a whole playlist of alternate sidekick universes, each one more of a hell of a bad decision than the last. If you ask me, we're one good comment section away from a full Rick and Whoever cinematic universe. Anyway, drop your rewrites, your episode titles, and your verdict on who's more dangerous. And remember, somewhere in the multiverse, Summer already watched this video, took notes, and is now Rick's boss. Smash cut back to that 2 AM bedroom doorway, except this time, it's Rick whispering, "Summer, you busy?" And she's the one holding the portal gun.